The loony left is using LGBTQ+, basically the alphabet, to groom and indoctrinate kids into victim groups, so they can tell them that everyone who is not in that group is oppressing that particular group, and CRT to indoctrinate them to be good little communists. If you don't believe me, they're already talking about arresting people for using speech they don't like.
I'm going to focus on, again, the process, the hiring process, which I somehow missed an email, Valerie, that you had sent me that we could go through the process, and I haven't done that with you, and I will try to set something up. But again, it's very similar to what Dorn said. Apparently during the working meeting, we spoke about rigor in the hiring process, and we were proud of that. I'm here to say that there is a gap. There is a gap in the process. And I feel as a community, we need to come together and we need to fill that gap. The information for this last hire was publicly available, which means there was a moot point with respect to the Governor Snyder had put out, you cannot ask people to show you your social media. Nobody had to ask. Each and every one of you, whatever the process may be, and I assume it goes from principal, superintendent to board, should have been interested in double checking before you rubber stamp anything. It should be important to you because when you're talking about a new hire, you're talking about the safety of our children. As Dorn mentioned, we have somebody who is a proud member of Antifa. And contrary to a lot of people's belief, Antifa doesn't just mean anti-fascist. You can say it does. However, there is currently a Senate Resolution 279 that's calling to actually legally label it as a terrorist organization. That's a concern. The next big concern for me, we have children in our schools. We had a teacher come up and speak about mental health, completely aligned with her as well. We have concerns like they did in Oxford. We need to know that a teacher is, as was mentioned, see something, say something. We need to know an administrator is going to see something, say something. And they are going to be able to collaborate with our police and our school officers. If that is not going to happen, if that's a concern, if we bring in a teacher who clearly has a disdain, disgust for police, are they going to be able to see something and say something? I really don't know that they are. We've got to stop being political. This isn't about them versus us, this versus that. We all should be apolitical and we should be security of our children. That is what is the most important thing. And the only way to do that is when you are hiring a new hire, please take a look. If it's publicly available, if somebody is proud to say the police discussed them, shame on all of you. And I'm sorry to say that for not having reviewed that. If you don't have kids still in this school, please realize there are a lot of people that do. Oxford is a horrible, horrible thing. Those administrators, shame on them. They did not include that resource officer. We don't need that to happen. Understand, people are concerned about safety. For me, this is not a you love Antifa, I love this. It's not that. It's I love children. I want them to live happily and go from school back to their parents because that's what I had. My daughter came home to me every time, right? These Oxford parents didn't have this. This should be an important thing for us all. So I'm asking you to please fill the gap. Don't pretend you don't have it because you do. Just because somebody can't show you or chooses not to show you their social media, for every one of those, there's somebody that did have a public social media that you all could have looked at and you should have. So thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
You know you're in a cult if 1. You believe you are what your imagination says you are. Delusional, characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a mental condition. You know you're in a cult if 6. You believe reality isn't real. Delusional, characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, typically as a symptom of a mental condition. You know you're in a cult if 10. Thanks to Jamie Lee Curtis, who didn't know how many Oscars she'd won, them can't count. You know you're in a cult if 11. You will cry in protest to take a real black woman off a syrup bottle and a Quaker off a box of oats named Quaker Oats, only to put a fake white woman on a beer can. All while saying, I can't believe they're so upset over a beer can. Bud Light parent Anheuser-Busch's stock has lost $27 billion over Dylan Mulvaney. You know you're in a cult if 13. If you get triggered because someone doesn't think you're special because you were born into one of the CRT-approved victim groups, they believe deeds and personal responsibility warrant pride. You know you're in a cult if 18. Lost your shit over To Kill a Mockingbird and Huckleberry Finn but are screaming about banning books with gay sex and masturbation in school libraries. You know you're in a cult if 20. Will lie even with irrefutable evidence. You know you're in a cult if 21. Being so filled with hate, you will groom, mutilate, and murder your own children, all while calling your opposition fascists. You know you're in a cult if 22. Believes that out of 7 billion people on the planet, white, straight, males are somehow oppressing everyone else. You know you're in a cult if 23. Will lose your shit when someone points out that you're not oppressed, you're just stupid. You know you're in a cult if 25. Will refer to a biology book as right-wing propaganda. You know you're in a cult if 26. Will lose your shit if someone actually uses proper English instead of your made-up pronouns. You know you're in a cult if 32. Are the same people who say you can't indoctrinate kids to be gay with a book or a drag show, but continually accuse the church of doing that very thing. Although religion isn't taught in schools, and you're not forced to go to church. You know you're in a cult if 33. When someone is simply talking science and common sense, you will try to bring religion into it. Well, you know the church. Well then, don't go to church. It's not against the law. Not going to school is. You know you're in a cult if 34. Will use unrelated behavior to justify their sick, grooming behavior. You know you're in a cult if 39. Will lose your shit when someone says you're in a woke cult, and to prove you're not, you do the things on this list over and over and over. You know you're in a cult if 40. Will accuse your opposition of that which you are guilty. You know you're in a cult if 46. Consider chemically castrating a pedophile horrible and inhumane, but chemically castrating a child just dandy.